Captain Jake Morrison watched through the viewport as Installation 7 grew larger on the screen. The massive facility looked like a small moon, covered in weapon platforms and shield generators. Round it, 50 Confederation warships waited. In perfect formation, their weapons trained on the approaching rebel fleet. "All ships report ready," announced Lieutenant Amy Foster from her communications station. Jake could hear the nervousness in her voice, but also determination. The rebel fleet was the largest gathering of free ships in 3,000 years. Humans flew alongside Zilithians. Korvan worked with Threnody, and at the center of it all, the ancient architect vessel commanded by Echo of Distant Stars led the way with technology Confederation had forgotten existed. "Captain, incoming." "Transmission from Zeth Prime Valdris," Amy reported. "Put him through," Jake ordered. The familiar blue face appeared on the main screen, but Valdris looked different now. His calm demeanor was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like panic. "Captain Morrison, you have brought chaos to a galaxy that has known only peace. Turn back now, and we will consider showing mercy to your followers." "The only chaos?" "Here's what you created when you decided that freedom was too dangerous for people to have," Jake replied. "We're here to set things right. You cannot understand what you are destroying. Without order, species will turn on each other. There will be wars, suffering, death. The peace we built will be lost forever." Dr. Lisa Bennett stepped into view of the screen. "You mean the peace you forced on everyone by threatening to eliminate them if they didn't comply? That's not peace, Valdris. It's fear. Fear serves a purpose, Dr. Bennett. It prevents the greater suffering that comes from allowing beings to make their own choices." "That choice isn't yours to make," Jake said firmly. "Not for us. Not for anyone." Valdris's black eyes seemed to grow darker. "Then you have doomed the galaxy to repeat the mistakes of the past. Installation 7 will not fall. Our defenses are impregnable." "We'll see about that," Jake replied and cut the transmission. The battle began moments later. Confederation. Ships moved with perfect coordination, their formations unchanged for millennia. But the rebels fought differently. Human tactics mixed with Zilithian telepathy, Corvan calculations supported Threnody teamwork. And architect technology provided surprises the Confederation couldn't predict. Captain Susan Lee's voice came over. "The communications system. Jake, we're breaking through their outer line. The Corvan rebels have found a weakness in their shield frequency. Good work. All ships, focus fire on the installation's main defense grid." The space around Installation 7 became a storm of energy beams and explosions. The rebel ships were outnumbered and outgunned, but they had something the Confederation forces lacked: improvisation. When their planned tactics failed, they created new ones. When their weapons proved insufficient, they found creative alternatives. Commander Ryan Clark worked at the tactical station, coordinating attacks with rebel ships. Across the fleet, the Threnody squad just punched through the lower defense ring. They're opening a corridor for the boarding parties. Jake felt a mixture of pride and fear as he watched the battle unfold. These beings from different worlds, who had never been allowed to work together as equals, were accomplishing the impossible through sheer determination and cooperation. "Captain Echo is requesting permission to begin the infiltration," Amy reported. "Tell him he's cleared for approach. And Amy, send our thanks. We couldn't have done this without the architects." On the screen, Jake watched as Echo's ship approached. Installation 7 using technology that made it nearly invisible to Confederation sensors. The architect vessel slipped through the battle like a ghost, carrying a team of rebels toward the facility's central core. Inside Installation 7, Echo led a mixed team of humans and aliens through corridors that hadn't seen intruders in 2,000 years. Dr. Bennett was with them, along with Kef 7 and several other specialists. Their mission was simple in concept, but nearly impossible. In execution, reach the central computer core and broadcast the telepathic suppression, override codes to every system in the galaxy. "The central core should be 3 levels down," Echo explained as they moved through the facility. His silver skin seemed to glow in the artificial light. "But be warned, the Confederation will have learned from their encounter with my people. They will not make the same mistakes twice." They encountered resistance as they moved deeper into the installation. Confederation security forces had been trained for 3,000 years to maintain order, but they had never faced opponents who refused to follow predictable patterns. KPH-7 used his restored telepathic abilities to confuse enemy soldiers. While the human commandos employed tactics that the Confederation had never seen before, Dr. Bennett and the technical team worked to bypass security systems that had been designed to be unbreachable. There, Echo pointed to a massive door marked with symbols in the ancient architect language. Beyond that door lies the heart of the Confederation's control system. The door was protected by every security measure the Confederation could devise. Energy shields, armed guards, and automated defense systems all stood between the rebels and their goal. Asked one of the human soldiers. Echo smiled, an expression that seemed strange on his alien features. We do what my people should have done 2,000 years ago. We stop asking for permission. The assault on the Central Core was brief, but intense. Working together, the mixed team of rebels overcame defenses that had been considered impossible to breach. When the massive door finally opened, they found themselves in a chamber filled with crystalline computers that hummed with barely contained energy. These are the master controls, Dr. Bennett breathed, looking at technology that was far beyond anything she had ever imagined. From here, the Confederation has been controlling the minds of entire species for millennia. Echo moved to the central console with practiced ease. It will take several minutes to broadcast the override codes to every system in the galaxy. Can you hold this position? We'll hold it, promised the team leader, checking his weapon. Do what you need to do. Meanwhile, the space battle around Installation 7 had reached a critical point. The rebel fleet was taking heavy casualties, but they had managed to keep the Confederation forces focused on them instead of the infiltration team. Jake watched as ship after ship was destroyed, each one representing beings who had chosen freedom over safety. How much longer do they need? He asked Amy. Echo estimates 5 more minutes, she replied. We might not have 5 minutes, Ryan Clark reported. Confederation reinforcements are jumping into the system, at least 100 more ships. Jake made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. All ships, this is Morrison. Implement final protocol. Get those codes transmitted no matter what it costs. Across the rebel fleet, captains and crews who had never met before. The rebellion began understood what they had to do. Ships that could no longer fight effectively turned themselves into weapons, ramming Confederation vessels or using their reactors as bombs. Captain Susan Lee's voice came over the communications. One last time. Jake, it's been an honor fighting alongside humanity and all our allies. Tell the galaxy that we chose this. Freedom exploded in a brilliant flash that temporarily lit up the entire battle zone. Inside Installation 7, Echo's fingers moved. Across controls that his ancestors had designed. The codes are transmitting now, he announced. Every telepathic suppression device in the galaxy is being shut down simultaneously. Across the galaxy, changes began immediately. On the Zilithian, homeworld beings who had been limited to collective thought suddenly experienced individual consciousness. On Corvin trade worlds, mathematicians found themselves composing songs and creating art. On Threnody military bases, drones began thinking for themselves for the first time in their lives. The effect reached even the battlefield around Installation 7. Confederation soldiers suddenly found themselves questioning orders. It followed without thought for their entire lives. This is it, Dr. Bennett said with wonder. The galaxy is free. But their celebration was cut short as new alarms began sounding throughout the facility. The order field weapon, Echo said with alarm. They're activating it manually. If it reaches full power, it will override our transmission and enslave every mind in the galaxy permanently. Jake's voice came over their communicators. Echo, whatever you're going to do it now. We can't hold them much longer. Echo looked at the central console, then at his companions. There is a way to stop the weapon, but it will require destroying this entire facility. No one in the Central Core will survive. Dr. Bennett stepped forward without hesitation. Do it. We came here to give the galaxy a choice, Kef 7 added. That choice is more important than our lives. One by one, the team members voiced their agreement. They had come too far and sacrificed too much to let the Confederation win now. Echo nodded solemnly and began entering commands. That would overload the installation's power core. It has been an honor to fight alongside beings who choose freedom. Over fear, he said. The explosion that destroyed Installation 7 could be seen from neighboring star systems. The green plasma beams shot out from the Council ships like deadly lightning. Each blast carried enough power to melt through solid steel or vaporize a small asteroid. The weapons had been tested against every known defense in the galaxy. Could stop them. Vex watched the tactical display as hundreds of plasma bolts streaked toward the human ships. Direct hits lit up his screen like fireworks. Any normal vessel would have been blown to pieces, but something was wrong. The human ships were still there, still moving, still perfectly intact. What happened? Vex demanded. Did we miss? No, sir, replied his weapons officer, staring at his console in confusion. Direct hits on multiple targets. But our weapons are having no effect. On the main screen, the human ships continued their silent approach. They moved like sharks cutting through water, smooth and deadly. Their dark hulls seemed to absorb the Council's plasma fire like it was nothing more than flashlight beams. Impossible, Vex muttered. Nothing can withstand that much firepower. Sir, the humans are returning fire, announced the sensor officer. The human weapons were different from anything in the Council database. Instead of energy beams, they fired solid projectiles that moved incredibly fast. Metal slugs accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. Behind them came streams of coherent energy that cut through space like invisible knives. The first Council ship to get hit was the destroyer Starfall. Human projectile punched through its shields as if they were made of paper. The metal slug tore through the ship's armor and exploded inside the engine room. Secondary explosions rippled through the vessel as power conduits overloaded and fuel tanks caught fire. Starfall is down, reported the communications officer. They are venting atmosphere and requesting immediate assistance. Before Vex could respond, more ships started taking hits. The human energy weapons were unlike anything he had seen. They seemed to bend space itself, creating tears in reality that ignored normal defensive systems. Council ships that had survived 1,000 battles were torn apart like toys. Return fire, all ships, Vex ordered. Concentrate on their lead vessels. The Council fleet unleashed everything they had. Plasma cannons, photon torpedoes, antimatter. Missiles. The space between the two fleets turned into a light show of deadly energy. But for every shot the Council fired, the humans seemed to absorb or deflect it somehow. Meanwhile, the human weapons kept finding their targets, ship after. Ship fell to the strange projectiles and energy beams. The Council forces had started with 300 vessels. After just 10 minutes of fighting, they were down to 250. How are they doing this? Kira asked, her voice shaking. Our shields should stop any primitive weapon. I do not know, Vex admitted. His confident smile was long gone. But we need to fall back and regroup. Signal a general retreat. Sir, the humans are not giving us a chance to retreat, the tactical officer reported. They are moving to surround us. Vex looked at his display and saw the truth. The human ships had spread out in a perfect formation that blocked every escape route. They moved with the coordination of a pack of wolves, each ship knowing exactly where the others would be. Break through their lines, Vex ordered. All ships, maximum acceleration toward the outer system. The Council ships tried to run, but the humans were ready for that too. Smaller, faster vessels appeared out of nowhere to cut off the fleeing ships. They used some kind of stealth technology that made them invisible until they were close enough to attack. Captain Rick Morgan piloted his ship Ghost through the chaos of battle. His vessel was one of the smaller human craft, built for speed and stealth rather than heavy firepower. But that was exactly what he needed for this mission. Target acquired, announced his weapons officer, Lieutenant Sam Parker. Alien cruiser. Trying to break away from the main formation? Lock on their engines, Morgan ordered. We want them disabled, not destroyed. Command needs prisoners for questioning. The Ghost's railgun fired a single shot. The projectile hit the alien ship's engine pod with surgical precision. The vessel spun out of control, venting gas and debris. Dead in space, but with most of its crew still alive. "Boarding pods away," reported Chief Lisa Barnes from the Marine compartment. "Contact in 30 seconds." Morgan watched as his Marines launched toward the disabled alien ship. They wore powered armor that let them operate in the vacuum of space. Their weapons were designed to work in any environment. Most importantly, they had trained for this exact situation hundreds of times. The aliens inside the ship had never faced boarders before. For 3,000 years, the Council had been the strongest force in the galaxy. No one had ever attacked their ships. They had no idea how to repel an invasion. Sergeant Carl White led the first team through the alien ship's hull. His armors. Cutting tools made short work of the metal walls. Inside, he found corridors filled with confused and frightened aliens. "Secure the bridge," White ordered his team. "Non-lethal force only. We need them alive." The aliens tried to resist, but their weapons were not designed for close combat inside a ship. They carried energy rifles meant for long-range fighting. In the narrow corridors, the human Marines had every advantage. Within minutes, White's team had captured the entire ship. The alien crew sat in their own detention cells, wondering how their advanced technology had failed them so completely. Back on the main battlefield, Admiral Kate Sullivan watched the tactical display from her command. Ship Nightfall. Her fleet was performing exactly as planned. Years of preparation were paying off. Wolverine Squadron reports successful capture of Target 7, announced Lieutenant Pete Johnson from the communications station. That makes 12 ships disabled. And boarded. "Excellent," Sullivan replied. "Signal Raptor Squadron to begin Phase 2. I want them to start hitting the aliens from behind while they are focused on our main force." The human battle plan was simple, but effective. Use stealth and speed to get close. Hit the enemy where they were weakest. Capture ships when possible. For intelligence gathering, most importantly, never fight fair. The aliens expected honor in combat. They wanted formal battles between equal forces. Instead, they faced an enemy that used every dirty trick in the book. Humans attacked from multiple directions. They targeted specific systems instead of trying to destroy entire ships. They used captured vessels to confuse alien formations. Commander. Vex watched his fleet falling apart around him. In less than an hour, he had lost over 100 ships. The humans had lost none, not one. Their ships seemed impossible to hit or destroy. Sir Admiral Kane, on the Triumph, is requesting permission. "To surrender," reported the communications officer. Surrender. Vex could not believe what he was hearing. The Council does not surrender to primitive species. "Sir, the Triumph has lost engines and weapons. They are taking heavy damage. Admiral Kane says his crew will die if they keep fighting." Vex looked at his tactical display. Triumph was surrounded by human ships. Its hull was torn open in a dozen places. Atmosphere and debris streamed out into space. But the human ships were not destroying it. They were just keeping it from escaping. "They want to capture us?" Vex realized. "They are not trying to kill us all. They want prisoners." "Should I give permission for the Triumph to surrender?" asked the communications officer. Vex hesitated. Everything he had been taught said that Council ships never gave up. But everything he had been taught was failing today. His superior technology was useless. His numerical advantage meant nothing. Experienced crews were being outfought by a species that had only been in space for decades. "Permission granted," he said quietly. "Signal all ships. Any captain who feels his crew is in immediate danger may surrender to avoid unnecessary casualties." Within minutes, ships throughout the fleet were powering down their weapons and transmitting surrender codes. The human vessels moved in quickly to secure each one. They worked with mechanical efficiency, as if they had done this 1,000 times before, but not everyone was ready to give up. Captain Zeth of the heavy cruiser Domination refused to surrender. His ship was one of the largest in the fleet, armed with the most powerful weapons the Council had ever built. "I will not bow to these primitives," Zeth announced over the fleet channel. "All ships, rally on my position." We will show these humans what true power looks like. About 50 ships moved to join Zeth's final stand. They formed a tight formation around the domination and prepared for one last desperate attack. Admiral Sullivan watched the alien ships group together and smiled. It was exactly what she had hoped they would do. "Signal the Montana," she ordered. "Tell Captain Davis his target is ready." Deep in space, a single human ship received the signal. It was larger than the others and had been waiting patiently for this moment. The Montana carried a weapon that no alien had ever seen before. The space around Zeth's formation suddenly twisted and bent. Reality itself seemed to fold in on the alien ships. For a moment, they existed in several places at once. Then they were gone, transported to a holding area far from the battle. The remaining council ships saw their comrades simply vanish into nothingness. Whatever weapon the humans had used, it was beyond their understanding, beyond their science, beyond their nightmares. "This is Commander Vex to all ships," he announced over the fleet channel. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood in the prisoner holding area of her ship Nightfall. Through the transparent aluminum walls, she could see dozens of alien officers from the captured council fleet. They sat quietly on simple metal benches, still wearing their colorful uniforms. Most of them stared at the floor. Few watched her with curious eyes. "The interrogations are going well," reported Colonel Amy Torres, Sullivan's intelligence chief. "These aliens have never experienced anything like our attack. They are very willing to talk." "What have you learned?" Sullivan asked. "Their technology is advanced but narrow," Torres explained. "They have focused on peaceful uses for thousands of years. Their weapons are powerful but simple. Their tactics are basic. Most importantly, they have never fought anyone who could match their technology level." Sullivan nodded. This confirmed what Earth scientists had suspected for years. When humanity first detected signs of galactic civilization, they had prepared for this exact scenario. The aliens would be technologically superior, but militarily weak, like sheep that had forgotten about wolves. "What about their military structure?" Sullivan continued. "Very centralized," Torres replied. "All major decisions come from their homeworlds. Individual ship captains have little freedom to adapt or improvise. When their standard tactics failed, they had no backup plans." This was exactly what Sullivan wanted to hear. Earth's strategy depended on the aliens being predictable and slow. To change, it looked like that assumption was correct. "Sir, incoming priority message from Earth Command," announced Lieutenant Pete Johnson from the communications station. "Put it through," Sullivan ordered. General John Carter appeared on the main screen. Behind him, Sullivan could see the bustling activity of Earth's primary military command center. "Congratulations on your victory, Admiral," Carter said. "Yeah. Performance exceeded all expectations. How many ships did we lose?" "0 casualties, sir," Sullivan reported with pride. "Minor damage to 3 vessels, but all are still combat ready. We captured 47 alien ships intact and took over 8,000 prisoners." Carter smiled. "Outstanding." "How comes the hard part? Our intelligence suggests that aliens will try to reinforce their position. We need to strike their major installations before they can organize a proper response." Sullivan understood. The first battle had been won through surprise and superior tactics, but the aliens would learn from their mistakes. Future engagements would be more difficult. "What are your orders, sir?" she asked. "Operation Deep Strike is approved," Carter replied. "We are to take your fleet to the coordinates we discussed. Hit their shipyards and manufacturing centers. Capture what you can, destroy what you cannot. Show them that nowhere is safe from Earth forces." "Understood, sir. When do we leave?" "Immediately. And Admiral, remember that we are not just fighting a war. We're teaching the galaxy a new way of thinking. Make sure they learn the lesson." The transmission ended, leaving Sullivan alone with her thoughts. She understood what Carter meant. Earth was not just defending itself. It was changing the balance of power in the galaxy forever. 3 days later, Captain Amy Torres commanded the stealth frigate Shadowhawk as it emerged from hyperspace near Beta Centauri 7. The system was home to the Council's largest military shipyard, a massive complex of orbital platforms where they built their most advanced vessels. Long-range sensors show minimal security, reported Lieutenant Dan Collins from his station. They have a dozen patrol ships and some automated defense platforms. Nothing that should cause us problems. Torres studied the tactical display. Shipyard consisted of 6 huge platforms connected by transport tubes. Hundreds of ships in various stages of construction floated in the zero-gravity assembly areas. It was a prize beyond Earth's wildest dreams. "Signal the fleet," Torres ordered. "Operation Smash and Grab is a go." Within minutes, a dozen human ships materialized throughout the system. They had used a combination of stealth technology and careful timing to arrive undetected. By the time the alien sensors spotted them, it was already too late. The attack began with electronic warfare. Human ships broadcast jamming signals that blinded alien sensors and disrupted their communications. The few Council patrol ships found themselves flying blind, unable to coordinate or call for help. Sergeant Carl White led the first wave of Marines aboard. Transport Alpha. His target was the main control center of the shipyard. Capture that, and the entire complex would be under human control. "Remember, we want this place intact," White told his team as their shuttle approached the largest platform. "No explosives unless absolutely necessary. We are here to steal, not destroy." The Marine assault was swift and brutal. Alien workers and security guards had never faced anything like human soldiers. White's team moved through the corridors with practiced efficiency, securing key areas and rounding up prisoners. Within 2 hours, the entire shipyard was under human control. Engineering teams immediately began downloading alien databases, while Marines secured the thousands of workers and technicians. "This is incredible," reported Chief Engineer Lisa Barnes as she studied the alien construction data. "They have been building the same basic ship designs for centuries. No innovation, no improvement, just the same old patterns over and over." Torres was not surprised. Everything they had learned about the Council suggested a civilization that had become comfortable and lazy. They had ruled the galaxy for so long that they had forgotten how to adapt and grow. "What about their current projects?" Torres asked. 17. "Ships under construction," Barnes replied. "Most are nearly complete. With a few modifications, we could have them operational within weeks." The prize was even better than Torres had hoped. Not only were they capturing advanced alien technology, but they were getting ready-made warships that could be turned against their former owners. But the real impact of the raid was not the ships or technology. It was the message it sent to the rest of the galaxy. News of the attack spread through Council space like wildfire. The Beta Centauri shipyard was supposed to be one of their most secure installations. It was deep in Council territory, protected by multiple defense fleets, considered completely safe from attack. Yet somehow, a primitive human force had appeared out of nowhere, captured the entire complex, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. It was impossible. It was terrifying. It changed everything. On the Council home world of Alteria Prime, emergency meetings were being held around the clock. Chancellor Zorth sat at the head of a long table filled with military advisors and government officials. Most of them looked confused and frightened. "How did they get so deep into our territory without being detected?" demanded General Cax, the head of Council military forces. "We are still investigating," replied Admiral Vorn, his voice shaking. "Our long-range sensors show no signs of human fleet movements. It is as if their ships can simply appear and disappear at will." "Impossible," Cax snorted. "No species has that kind of technology. The humans seem to have many impossible technologies," Zorth said quietly. "Their ships can absorb our most powerful weapons. Their soldiers can capture our most secure facilities. Perhaps it is time we stopped thinking about what is possible and started thinking about what is real." The room fell silent. For 3,000 years, the Council had been the undisputed masters of the galaxy. Now, in the space of a few days, everything they believed about their superiority had been shattered. "What do you recommend?" Zorth asked his advisors. "We need to mobilize everything," General Cax replied. "Call up every reserve fleet. Activate all our defensive installations. Show these humans that they cannot attack us without consequences." "And then what?" Zorth asked. Our most advanced fleet was destroyed by a force one-third its size. Our most secure shipyard was captured by a handful of ships. What makes you think more of the same will work better? Cax had no answer for that. Meanwhile, on dozens of worlds throughout Council space, the local leaders were having their own emergency meetings. If the humans could strike anywhere, anytime, then no world was safe. Some systems quietly began reaching out to Earth through intermediaries, hoping to negotiate separate peace agreements. Others started massive military buildups, pulling resources from civilian projects to build new weapons and defenses. The Council's carefully maintained economy began to strain under the sudden military spending. Fear was spreading through the galaxy like a plague. And fear, as any human general could tell you, was often more effective than any weapon. Back on Earth, General Carter studied the reports coming in from across the galaxy. The plan was working perfectly. By attacking the aliens' sense of security, rather than just their military forces, humanity was causing the entire council structure to break down from within. Sir. Admiral Sullivan is requesting permission to begin Phase 3 operations, reported his aide. Carter smiled. Phase 3 would be the most audacious part of their plan yet. If it worked, the war would be over within months. If it failed, Earth might face the combined might of 17 angry alien species. Tell the Admiral she has my approval, Carter. Ordered. It is time to show the galaxy what humans do to enemies who threaten our home. Chancellor Zorth stood before the massive viewing window in his office on Alteria Prime. Below him, the capital city stretched to the horizon, its silver towers gleaming in the afternoon sun. For 3,000 years, this city had been the center of galactic civilization. Now it felt like a target waiting for human weapons. The door chimed softly behind him. Enter, Zorth called without turning around. Admiral Vorn walked into the room, his silver scales dulled with fatigue. In his hands he carried a datapad filled with the latest reports from across Council space. The situation continues to deteriorate, Vorn said quietly. 3 more systems have requested permission to leave the Council. The Zephyrian Republic is mobilizing their entire fleet. The Mondorian Trade Union has stopped all shipping to Outer Rim worlds. Zorth finally turned from the window. His large eyes were tired and sad. How many attacks have there been in the past week? 17 confirmed strikes, Vorn replied. Weapons factories, communication relays, supply depots. The humans seem to know exactly where to hit us to cause maximum damage, and our response. Vorn hesitated. We have increased patrols and strengthened defensive positions around key installations. But, sir, the humans do not attack defended targets. They strike where we are weakest, then disappear before our forces can respond. Zorth walked to his desk and sat down heavily. The weight of leading 17 different species through their first major war in 3 millennia was crushing him. What about the emergency fleet we assembled at Rigel Station? He asked. The humans bypassed it completely, Vorn admitted. While our ships waited for them to attack, they hit 6 different targets in the opposite direction. By the time our fleet arrived at any of the attack sites, the humans were long gone. Zorth rubbed his temples. Humans fought like nothing the Council had ever encountered. They ignored military tradition. They avoided fair fights. They struck civilian targets and military installations with equal effectiveness. Most frustrating of all, they seemed to anticipate every Council move. Sir, there is something else, Vorn said reluctantly. We intercepted a human transmission. It appears they are planning something called Operation Nightfall. What do we know about it? Very little. Transmission was heavily encrypted. Our best analysts think it involves a major strike against one of our core worlds. Zorth felt his blood turn cold. The core worlds were the heart of the Council. They contained the most important industrial centers, the largest populations, and the central government facilities. An attack on a core world would be an act of total war. Which world, Zorth demanded? We do not know. The transmission mentioned multiple targets. They could be planning to attack several worlds simultaneously. The Chancellor stood up and began pacing. If the humans struck at the core worlds, The Council would have no choice but to respond with everything they had. It would mean total war. Across the entire galaxy, double the defenses around all core worlds, Zorth ordered. Move every available ship to protect our most important systems. And Admiral, prepare for the possibility that we may need to negotiate with these humans. Vorn looked shocked. Sir, the Council has never negotiated with a species that attacked us. The Council has never been attacked by a species like the humans, Zorth replied grimly. 3 days later, Captain Amy Torres sat in the command chair of her ship Shadowhawk as it drifted silently through the outer system of Vega Prime. The world below was one of the Council's most important manufacturing centers, home to over 2 billion beings and countless factories that produced everything from starship components to medical supplies. All ships report ready, announced Lieutenant Dan Collins from the communications station. Operation Nightfall is go for execution. Torres smiled. Aliens thought Nightfall was going to be a massive assault on their core worlds. They had moved most of their fleet to defend their most important systems. What they did not realize was that Nightfall was not about destroying core worlds. It was about something much more valuable. Begin Phase 1, Torres ordered. Across the system, human ships began transmitting on every frequency the aliens used. But they were not sending weapon fire or threats. They were broadcasting something much more dangerous. Information, the transmissions, went out in dozens of languages to every world in Council space. They contained detailed records of Council government meetings, military planning sessions, and private communications between leaders. The humans had been intercepting and recording alien communications for months. The broadcasts revealed corruption among Council officials, secret deals between different species, and plans to exploit smaller member worlds. They showed that the peaceful Council was not as united or honorable as its citizens believed. Phase 1 complete, Collins reported. All transmissions sent successfully. Begin Phase 2, Torres ordered. Now the real work began. Human ships moved toward key installations throughout the system, but they were not planning to destroy them. Instead, they were going to do something the aliens would never expect. Sergeant Carl White led his Marine team through the corridors of a massive orbital factory. But instead of capturing or destroying the facility, they were installing something. Communication equipment that would let the factory workers talk directly to workers on other worlds. Package delivered, White reported over his radio. Locals should be able to contact their counterparts on 12 other worlds within the hour. Similar operations were taking place throughout the system. Human teams were secretly installing communication devices that bypassed government channels. For the first time in Council history, ordinary citizens would be able to talk to each other without their leaders controlling the conversation. The effect was immediate and devastating. Workers on industrial worlds learned that their counterparts on other planets were being paid twice as much for the same work. Citizens discovered that their leaders had been lying about resource shortages while stockpiling wealth for themselves. Soldiers found out that their officers were living in luxury, while sending them to die in pointless battles. Within hours, protests began on dozens of worlds. Factory workers went on strike. Citizens demanded answers from their governments. Some systems declared their independence from the Council entirely. Chancellor Zorth watched the reports flooding in with growing horror. The humans had not attacked his military forces or destroyed his infrastructure. Instead, they had attacked something much more fragile, the trust that held his empire together. Sir, we are receiving surrender requests from 14 different systems, Admiral Vorn reported. They want to negotiate separate peace treaties with Earth. And the protests? Spreading to over 40 worlds. Some of our own security forces are refusing to act against the demonstrators. Zorth sank into his chair. In 3 days, the humans had accomplished something no military force had ever done. They had turned the Council against itself. Sir, there is more, Vorn continued reluctantly. We are receiving reports of human ships in 17 different systems simultaneously. They are not attacking. They are just ... watching.
What?
Our fleet movements, our communications, our response to the crisis. It is as if they are studying us. And that was exactly what they were doing. Admiral Kate Sullivan coordinated the operation from her flagship, watching as human intelligence. Teams gathered detailed information about every aspect of Council society. Psychological profile update complete, reported Colonel Amy Torres. The alien leadership structure is more fragile than we initially believed. They depend entirely on voluntary cooperation between member species. Remove that cooperation, and the entire system collapses. Sullivan nodded. Earth's strategy had always been about more than military victory. They wanted to reshape the galaxy entirely, and that meant understanding how alien societies worked. About their military response? Sullivan asked. Confused and reactive, Torres replied. They keep preparing for the kind of attack they understand. Direct military confrontation. They have no idea how to fight an information war. Excellent. Signal all ships to begin Phase 3. Phase 3 was the most audacious part of the operation. Human ships began appearing in orbit around Council worlds, not to attack, but to offer protection. They transmitted messages to local populations, offering to defend them against their own governments if necessary. The psychological impact was devastating. Citizens who had been taught that the Council protected them suddenly saw human ships as potential liberators. Governments that had ruled for centuries found their own people looking to aliens for protection. On some worlds, local leaders tried to maintain order by force, but the humans had anticipated this too. Whenever Council forces moved against protesters, mysterious equipment failures would disable their weapons or vehicles. Communication systems would go down at critical moments. Supply lines would be mysteriously disrupted. It was as if the humans had infiltrated every aspect of Council society and could cripple their opponents without firing a shot. Sir, I am receiving a priority communication from Earth Command, reported Lieutenant Collins. Admiral Sullivan smiled. She had been expecting this message. General Carter appeared on the main screen, his expression serious but satisfied. Outstanding work, Admiral. The neutral station floated in empty space between two star systems, far from any inhabited world. It was a simple structure made of metal and glass, built specifically for this meeting. Inside the main conference room, two groups sat across from each other at a long table. On one side were the representatives of the Galactic Council. Chancellor Zorth led the delegation, his silver scales looking dull under the station's lights. Beside him sat the leaders of 16 other alien species, each one representing a civilization that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. They all looked tired and defeated. On the other side sat a single human woman, Ambassador Helen. Ross was 50 years old with gray hair and sharp blue eyes. She wore a simple black suit with no decorations or symbols of rank. Despite being outnumbered 17-1, she looked completely calm and confident. Let me be clear about the situation, Ross said, her voice carrying easily across the room. Your empire is collapsing. Half of your member worlds have declared independence. Your remaining military forces are scattered and demoralized. Your citizens no longer trust their leaders. You have two choices. Negotiate with Earth now, or watch everything you've built crumble into nothing. Chancellor Zorth shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Everything the human said was true. In the 6 weeks since the war began, the mighty Galactic Council had been reduced to a shadow of its former self. We underestimated your species, Zorth admitted. We thought you were primitive. We were wrong. We made the same mistake that prey species always make, Ross replied. You assumed we thought like you, but we are not prey. We are predators. We have spent our entire history fighting, competing, and surviving. When you threatened our world, you activated instincts that your peaceful species never developed. The alien delegates looked at each other nervously. They had all read the reports about human warfare, the tactical genius, the ruthless efficiency, the complete willingness to use any method necessary to win. What do you want from us? Chancellor Keth of the Viraxian Republic. His voice was barely above a whisper. Ross opened a folder and pulled out a single sheet of paper. Our terms are simple. The Galactic Council will be dissolved immediately. All member species will be free to govern themselves without interference. Earth will establish a new sphere of influence in this galaxy, and any world that requests our protection will receive it. And if we refuse? Asked General Cax. Ross looked at him with those cold blue eyes. Then we continue hunting you. Your remaining ships will be destroyed or captured. Your leaders will be removed from power. Your worlds will be occupied until stable governments can be established. The choice is yours. The silence in the room was deafening. For 3,000 years, these species had been the masters of the galaxy. Now they were being dictated to by a species that had only reached the stars decades ago. You are asking us to surrender everything we have built, Zorth said quietly. No, Ross corrected. I am asking you to accept reality. If your empire was built on the assumption that no one would ever challenge you, that assumption was wrong. The galaxy has changed, and you can either adapt or be replaced. Chancellor Zorth looked around the table at his fellow leaders. He could see the fear in their eyes. Fear of human weapons. Fear of human tactics. But most of all, fear of what would happen to their people if the war continued. We need time to consider your offer, Zorth said. You have 1 hour, Ross replied. After that, our military forces will resume operations. The alien delegates filed out of the room, leaving Ross alone with her thoughts. Through the station's windows, she could see the stars scattered across the darkness of space. Somewhere out there, Admiral Sullivan's fleet was waiting for her signal. One word from Ross, and the war would continue until every council world was under human control. But Ross hoped it would not come to that. Earth did not want to rule the galaxy through force. They wanted to rule it through respect and fear. Was a difference. And that difference would determine the kind of future humanity built among the stars. 57 minutes later, the aliens returned. Chancellor Zorth looked even more tired than before. Behind him, the other delegates moved like beings walking to their own execution. We accept your terms, Zorth said simply. Ross nodded. Wise choice. The formal documents will be prepared within the hour. In the meantime, I want you to understand something important. Earth is not interested in destroying your civilizations. We want to see them grow and prosper, but they will do so as free and independent worlds, not as parts of an empire that has outlived its usefulness. What about our people? Asked Chancellor Keth. Many of them have lived their entire lives as citizens of the Council. They do not know how to be independent. They will learn, Ross replied. Humans will be available to provide advice and assistance to any world that requests it. But the decisions about how to govern yourselves will be yours to make. Over the next several hours, the documents were signed and the news was transmitted. Across the galaxy, the Galactic Council was officially dissolved. 17 species that had been united for millennia were now free to choose their own paths. The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. On some worlds, there were celebrations in the streets as people finally felt free from distant rulers who had never understood their needs. On others, there was confusion and fear as society struggled to adapt to sudden independence. But everywhere, there was respect for the humans who had made it all possible. Admiral Kate Sullivan received the news aboard her flagship while patrolling the former council space. Around her, the bridge crew worked quietly at their stations, monitoring communication channels and tracking the movements of various alien fleets. Signal from Earth's command announced Lieutenant Pete Johnson. General Carter wants to speak? With you. Carter's face appeared on the main screen, and for the first time in months, he was smiling. Congratulations, Admiral, Carter said. You and your people have accomplished something remarkable. In 6 weeks, you have reshaped the balance of power in the galaxy. Thank you, sir, Sullivan replied. What are our orders now? It's consolidation and protection, Carter answered. Several worlds have already requested to join a new alliance with Earth. Others want our help establishing stable governments. Your job is to make sure the transition goes smoothly. And if any of the former council species try to rebuild their empire, Carter's expression hardened. Then you remind them why that would be a very bad idea? Over the following months, a new order emerged in the galaxy. Some alien species formed small regional alliances. Others chose to remain completely independent. A few even requested to become part of Earth's growing sphere of influence. The humans adapted to their new role as the galaxy's dominant power with the same efficiency they had shown in warfare, established trade routes, provided technological assistance, and mediated disputes between different worlds. But everyone understood that behind the diplomacy and cooperation was the iron fist of human. Military power Captain Amy Torres stood on the observation deck of her ship Shadowhawk as it orbited New Geneva, one of the first alien worlds to request full alliance with Earth. Below her, the planet's cities glowed with lights powered by human technology. In the orbital shipyards, alien workers labored alongside human engineers to build ships that combined the best of both civilizations. Hard to believe it has only been a year, said Lieutenant Dan Collins, joining her at the window. Sometimes change happens fast, Torres replied. The galaxy was ready for something new. They just did not know it until we showed them. Do you think we did the right thing? Collins asked. Destroying an empire that had lasted for thousands of years? Torres considered the question carefully. The council was not evil, she said finally, but it was stagnant. It stopped growing, stopped adapting, stopped pushing the boundaries of what was possible. Sometimes old things have to die so new things can be born. Through the window, they could see human and alien children playing together in one of the planet's parks. The next generation would grow up in a galaxy where cooperation was based on mutual respect rather than submission to a distant authority. Besides, Torres added with a smile, we are predators. It is what we do. We hunt, we compete, we survive, and we make everything around us stronger in the process. The galaxy is a better place because Earth's children are in it. In the depths of space, human ships continued their patrols. They were no longer hunting enemies, but they remained vigilant. The galaxy had learned an important lesson about what happened when apex predators felt threatened. The lesson was simple. They do not become extinct. They evolve. And they make sure that everyone else evolves too, whether they want to or not. Humanity had come to the stars not as conquerors, but as catalysts for change. They had taken a stagnant galaxy ruled by ancient traditions and transformed it into something dynamic and alive. The future would be uncertain and challenging, but it would never again be boring. And in the end, that was exactly what the galaxy needed.